We introduce Ebrahim Marais today. He is a revert from Christian to Islam, and we would love to hear his story about how he converted and only believe in one God.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I was born as the second son, third son of the Marais family, and we grew up in Elsies River, Cape Town, and was born into a very godly family, I would say. Very, not a Christian family, but a godly family. So yeah, we've been busy with church and stuff from the beginning of our life, and that's how we grew up. First time I was born into the Anglican church, and my brother was an altar boy, my mother, we all went to church every Sunday, and that was our life. And then it came time to me when I was growing up, to the age where they call where I have to go for confirmation. And as time went on, we started sort of going backwards from the church. Nobody went to church so much, and then somebody introduced us to the New Apostolic Church. By that time I was like 16 years old. And then I started learning music. I played big pipe organs, one of the biggest pipe organs in the Southern Hemisphere. I wrote music. I was an orchestra conductor. I had 120 orchestra members with me. And I also serviced 32 congregations, being in charge of the music, doing orchestras, organ and choir work. So that was my life for the next 30 years. I got married, and in that 30 years, as I was busy every night with music, it cracked up my marriage. My marriage went because I was never at home. I was always busy with music. So after 16 years of marriage, I went to the people and said, look, I have problems in my marriage, but they wouldn't, I was good at what I do. So they didn't want to hear that. They said to me, just keep yourself busy with God's work, and that will disappear. I did that, but it didn't last, so eventually I walked out of that marriage. And then I met another lady with 3 children. Her husband died. I knew her from when I was young. And I felt so sorry for this lady and all that, and I got married to that lady. Yes, after 6 years, I walked out of that marriage because I saw what was going on. But the children was now big, and they had what they were very poor. And they had that they did not have before. Alhamdulillah. And I'm glad I could have been a help in that people's life at that time. So later on in my life, after the second marriage, and then I said, I'm not going back to that church. My mother was still alive, so I had respect for her. She was 84 when she died. So I had to wait till she died before I could walk out of that church. I believe in my heart that Allah kept me away from the world when I was in that church. If I wasn't in a church or busy with church work all that 30 years, then I would have been maybe somebody totally else. And then there was some time, and then I met a person in my life, a woman, and I made a second dua, and I said, Allah, if you give me this woman, then I will bring it to you. But thinking in my heart that I'll bring it to the New Apostolic Church. I didn't go to the church, but I was bargaining with God because I wanted this person. I was thinking, if I can tell him something this good, then he would hear my prayer. That time I met a guy, an Indian guy, and I was asking him for a new job because I didn't like where I was working, and he said to me, I can give you a job, but you have to change your life. So I said, what do I have to change? So he said, when you get there, I'll show you. So he gave me the job, and he introduced me to the born-again Christian side. So I went to his office one day. I said, I can't work for you anymore because the God that I think you serve and the God that I serve is not the same God. So I got another job working for Chinese people, and there was this guy, a Chinese guy, and he was also Christian. So we were working fine, and then I was retrenched, and I had to move from Gordons Bay where we lived close to the church. And we came back to Mitchell's Plain. And that is the time where we were really on the verge of being down and out. And we had to come live in a separate entrance on somebody's yard, and those people were Muslim people. And this was strange for us, you know. So we joined another small church just not far away from us, because we were not going to go all the way there to church. So I was active in this church, and I started working there. And one day we were at a function, and it was this pastor's birthday, and we came very late that night, and the next morning I overslept for church. So I came in the back of the church, and I was sitting there, and I was late, and I had to be busy in front. So the pastor was keeping he was keeping the sermon, but he was actually talking to me, like having a fight with me from the altar. And I looked at this and I thought, but what is this about? You know, this is not God. Where's the forgiveness? Where's the sincerity? There's nothing. This guy is talking to me, and there's nothing I can do. I'm sitting and listening. So when the sermon is out, I walked out of the church, and I came to my wife and I said, I am not going back to any church anymore. I'm finished with church. God must show me where I must go now. Yeah, so the place where I was living, the lady gave me a Quran, and she gave me a DVD of Khalid Yasin. And I put it in the ceiling, hiding it from my wife, because I know how she feels about Muslims, and I'm only starting to understand them. But I did like the conversation between me and these people on the yard, you know, because I was trying to convince them that Jesus is God. But in that conversations, they brought out things that made me think a lot about that, but I didn't worry about it either. But this specific day I was at home. It was a Friday morning, was bored, it was very cold, I was alone, and so I remembered this Khalid Yasin CD, DVD, so I thought I'm going to take it out and look what it's about. And there this guy was on this, talking about, is Jesus God, and he's convincing me that Jesus is not God, and I can't argue with him because he's on TV. And I just had to listen. God has put me in a position where I had to be quiet for a while, because all the people, all the years I was teaching that Jesus is God, now I had to be quiet and listen. Because if that would have been a guy speaking to me, he would never have been able to convince me, because I was going to try and convince him what I believe, what I believe is right. That broke my whole spirit, that broke everything in me. And when at the end I realized, but it's the truth. Because I knew the Bible well, I fell down on my knees and I started crying bitterly. And I started making tawbah. You know, I started asking for forgiveness. And that was the first ever forgiveness in my life that I can say, coming before God and asking for forgiveness, pouring out everything that was in me that was wrong. Not blaming anybody, just pouring it out, crying, and when I was finished there, I felt like so pure and clean. Yeah. And then I knew, this is what I want. This is real. This is it's real. It's not, we're not busy with things here. So that very same day, I went to the guy in the yard and I said, I want to go to the mosque. I remember the Quran in the ceiling, so I took it out, I put it in the car. Monday morning I took it to work and I started reading. And as I read, I was hitting that table every time I came across the stories, and I was following the stories and the truth about it. That Allah says specifically in the Quran, the truth about what the lies are about in the book, people of the book. I hit the table and I said, I'm not going to go to hell. I don't want to go to hell. And I read the Quran in 3 days. I couldn't stop. I just read and read. I was so hungry. I was so empty because all that Christianity came out in that Tawbah. Allah just ripped it out of my soul. And He replaced it with this new thing that's there. And I was reading it and it was just filling me up. It was just filling me up. I was so hungry. And on the third day I went to a brother and I said to that brother, take me to the mosque, I want to be a Muslim. What must I do? He says, no, you must say your kalima. I said, no, just take me to the mosque.
What will your advice be for people?
Well, my advice to people will be, look, there's people that's searching for the truth. That's people that stumble on the truth. They're like, I stumbled on the truth. There's a lot of ways how you get to the direction of coming to Islam and coming to the truth. But when it comes in your way and you listening to those things, you need to, if you want to be with God one day, if you are a God-fearing and a God-conscious person, obviously there is some truth in you. But God says to us that we must search for the truth, we must look for it, and we must go find it. But there's a way to find it. The way is going before God and asking Him to show you what you need to do, to lead you where you need to go. Because you can't just go blindly into things and say, oh, I met today a Muslim, I would like to go to the church and stuff like that. God will show you things in your way. Things will happen in your way. And when you get to that point where you feel you want to be a Muslim, this is right for you, and Allah has given you that hidayah. He's inspired you. That is the point in time where you have to make that decision. You have to make that choice. You cannot say, yes, I would like to make that choice, but what about my family? What about my wife? What about my children? What about my work, my money? That is nothing to do with that choice that you're going to make. Because if you make that choice, if you don't make that choice because of that arguments you're placing in front of you, which is the devil, he knows where you're going. So he's trying to put a wall up there. If you don't make that choice because of those things that are standing in front of you, then you are saying Allah's not able. You're not trusting God. You're not trusting in Him. And He wants you to trust in Him.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it so much.
Shukran. Assalamu alaikum.